Skywalker. What is these movies even about?
You know, when The Rise of Skywalker came out, I was very disappointed. Not in the movie itself, which was awesome. I was disappointed that I couldn't argue with people about it. I thought back to all that fun I had 2 years ago when The Last Jedi came out. Man, we went back and forth on that one for a while, didn't we? I wanted to do that again, so I hit up some of my old online acquaintances, the ones who hated The Last Jedi, and I was like, come on, bro, Rise of Skywalker, man, let's throw down, let's discuss it. But it didn't really work. The response that I got most was something along the lines of,
Duh, I didn't see it. I'm never gonna see it. This is the worst movie ever. Fuck Star Wars and fuck you.
wait a minute, how do you know it's such a bad movie if you haven't seen... never mind. But anyway, let's rewind for a moment. Let's just look back at where we were before this sequel trilogy came out. The prequel trilogy had come and gone. A lot of people were disappointed in it. Some people liked it. Disney was now in control of everything. They were going to make a new trilogy, and they were going to correct the things that people thought that Lucas did wrong with the prequels. They wanted to make some Star Wars movies that felt more like the original trilogy. They wanted to add back the grit and the grime and the practical effects. They wanted to tone down the cute CGI sidekicks. They didn't want any politics, any scenes that took place inside Senate buildings. They had to give us a new story that was also kind of connected to the past. Something that felt like the original Star Wars, moved things forward, but still had that nostalgia factor. Now that the sequel trilogy is over and done with, I would say that they succeeded. They succeeded far beyond my wildest dreams, to be honest. When The Force Awakens came out in 2015, I had no real hopes, no expectations. I was completely agnostic about it. Because of that mindset, I was able to appreciate it for exactly what it was, and not for what it wasn't. A lot of other people felt otherwise. One question I've seen lots of people ask, they say, what is this trilogy about? Besides, making money. But what are these movies about? And hey, that's a fair question. We're all overloaded these days. These entertainment products fly by us so quickly. The creators have all these twists and turns. They try to keep us on edge, keep us guessing. Meanwhile, you're trying to remember all the plot points that happened on Better Call Saul like 3 seasons ago, and how every character that you see there is how they connected to Breaking Bad. And you're playing video games, and you're checking your Twitter, and you're trying to get the latest news updates on the coronavirus situation. And some people online, they're all going to get together and have a Netflix party and take drugs and watch Cats and live tweet about it while doing drugs and watching Cats. And you're like, wait, do I have time? Do I have time to be a part of that? And it gets pretty exhausting sometimes. If you were still that kid you used to be, you'd have these new sequel trilogy movies on VHS, and you'd watch them every day after school with your friends, and you'd have plenty of time to discuss them and fully digest them. But these days, everything goes by so quickly, and people are left wondering, what was that all about? Recently I saw someone on Twitter, they were asking that question about that latest Harry Potter movie. The Crimes of Grindelwald? This person, they said something like,
oh my god, I watched this movie and I couldn't even remember it and I couldn't tell you what it was about. What was this movie even? What was it about? I don't know.
I thought, that's kind of funny. A grown-ass adult admitting that the plot of a Harry Potter kids movie is somehow beyond their comprehension. Just to be helpful, and also to be a huge asshole, I sat there and I recounted the entire plot back to them. The magical conspiracy, the mistaken identity, the rise of the villain, blah blah blah. But of course, movies are about more than just the basic plot. And I am confused that someone could watch a movie like The Crimes of Grindelwald and not have a handle on what it's about. Because you have this story, it takes place in Britain in the 1940s, and you have this villain, this bad guy who escapes from prison, and he starts recruiting followers to his master race pureblood cause. He thinks that the pure-blooded people of the world need to band together to oppress everyone else. His most important follower is this angry, lost young man who wants to be a part of something greater than himself. The good guys, the British authorities, they're just kind of kicking back and they're saying, you know what? No one's going to take this guy seriously. He's not really that much of a threat. This will all resolve itself using the proper channels in the due course of time. But then the villain grows stronger and more people start following him. Even people who you think would never follow him, they fall in line with him because either they're afraid of him or they're seduced by what he offers. And one of his first victims is this beautiful woman. She's kind of a half-blood, kind of a half-breed. She kind of looks like a gypsy when you really think about it. And then there's this other character, this woman named Tina Goldstein. Yeah, her name is Goldstein because she's a Jew. She is a Jewess, she's Jewish, and she's almost certainly going to die. The blonde-haired, blue-eyed villain who wants to create a master race is probably going to kill this woman who is Jewish.
Hitler, World War II, the rise of fascism.
I mean, you think? Come on, J.K. Rowling, what kind of unsolvable mystery box are you presenting us with here? I can't follow the clues. I haven't been this confused since Upstream Color.
The water before you is somehow special. It is better than anything you've ever tasted.
I mean, come on, help us out. I'm watching your movie here, and at the end the Nazi shows a vision of a big mushroom cloud, and I'm just like, what is this about? But anyway, that's Harry Potter. What about Star Wars? What are these new Star Wars movies about? Well, they're about a lot of things. Let's touch on these real briefly. They're about introducing a new generation of heroes, one that will hopefully make sense to the Gen Z kids of today. They're not the grand heroes from the golden age of World War II, and nor are they the 1960s baby boomer hippie heroes who want to leave home and find some excitement. This new generation of heroes are just a bunch of kids in a world where all the structures around them seem to have collapsed, and they're struggling just to make it in the gig economy. They don't have parents or families or grand ambitions. They're just trying to survive, and all they have is each other. Who they are is entirely up to them. These movies are about the older heroes coming back and passing the torch to the new generation. The four main heroes from the original trilogy, they all come back to help Rey without even really knowing who she is or what it all means in the big picture. Well, Leia knew, I guess. And despite what some people say, I am very glad that we did not get this movie. You think you wanted that, but you didn't. That would have been fucking horrible. This is Star Wars. It's not Wild Hogs or whatever. These movies are about recapturing the spirit of the original trilogy to a point that is almost suspicious. I mean, they began with a zippy first chapter that had a big Death Star, and then for the second chapter they brought in a really smart guy to make things like weirder, deeper, darker, and better, before bringing back the original creator to kind of wrap things up in a crowd-pleasing fashion. That is really dedication to a process. Like, that is practically meta, the way they went about things. These movies are a sort of child swap narrative, which is kind of a thing that happens. There's this old theme in world literature where, you know how old, powerful, noble families back in the day, they would exchange children in order to establish loyalty between their houses, and the wrong kids would be raised by the wrong parents. It's just kind of a thing. It still happens. I hear that the next season of Fargo is going to be doing something like that.
I see you've met my daughter.
Your daughter?
The one and only.
Oh yeah, now I see it. Huh.
Or heck, that series Cobra Kai that everyone loves, that's kind of a child swap narrative. Daniel LaRusso is raising Johnny's son that Johnny should be raising. Meanwhile, the kid who's more like Daniel-san is being raised by Johnny, and he's raising Johnny like he's helping the master. It's kind of a thing. The kids are with the opposite parent that they should be, but it makes sense in the long run. And that's what this trilogy is kind of about. The child of the light side is stolen by the dark side. Meanwhile, the child of the dark side is off-raised in the light in order to set things right. If things had happened differently, maybe this would be a trilogy about young Ben Solo following in his parents' footsteps and having to fight off the Emperor and his heir, the evil, sexy Darth Rey. That might also have been really interesting, but it didn't happen. The kids got switched. It's a child swap narrative. Oh god, don't even get me started on that Tangled cartoon, which is like my new favorite thing ever. I mean, it's like the same thing. I mean, Mother Gothel, she raises Rapunzel. Rapunzel's parents raise nobody. Cassandra, who's the biological daughter of Mother Gothel, she gets raised by the captain of the guard. It's like all the kids are in wrong places. It's just like, the child swap. It's just a thing. And ultimately, these movies are about extending, finishing, completing the 9 films of the Skywalker saga. It's a trilogy of trilogies, each in 3 parts, and altogether they form one coherent narrative. It begins with Palpatine as a legitimate authority figure, and it ends with him as a terrorist striking back from the dark side of the galaxy. It's about how when a society falls to evil, this evil can last longer and be more enduring than anyone thought possible. Your parents thought they could banish it, but it just keeps coming back again and again. If someone who's never seen Star Wars decides to sit down and watch all 9 of these movies at once, they will have no problem telling exactly what it's about. And don't get me wrong, if Disney had decided to start over completely fresh, if Rey was a brand new character who had absolutely no connection to the past, if Palpatine was dead and buried and nothing in the original trilogy mattered anymore, and it was just some completely new, fresh, unexpected adventure the likes of which we'd never seen before, well, that would have been good too. I would have been completely on board with that. Instead, they took this opportunity, the last opportunity they'll have with the actors, they took the opportunity to bring the old gang back for one last ride, to wrap everything up in a neat little bow. The Skywalkers, the Palpatines. This is their story. Looking back, I'm glad they did it while they had the chance. I think after this, Star Wars does need to move someplace totally new. I guess we'll have to see if it's able to. But these 9 films, the Skywalker saga, I love them. I hope you do as well. Whew, okay. I just introduced a bunch of topics there, and this discussion is way too long for one video. So I'm actually going to split this up into a whole series of videos about the Rise of Skywalker. This is number 1. This is the introduction. There's going to be like 4 more coming. There's a good chance at this moment that you're in self-quarantine because of the coronavirus, and maybe you have time for this kind of content. Stay tuned. There's more on the way. Peace out!
Ba 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 ba.